Hello, this is a review on the Vizio P-Series 4K television. A little bit about this setup. I am shooting with a Panasonic GH4 camera in 4K, and I will downsample this all to 1080 for the video, because while this is a 4K television, I don't have 4K content to play on it, so we are using the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo Blu-ray. As an example, this was shot in 4K, I believe, maybe 6K, but Blu-rays are 1080, so this video is going to be 1080. This is a 55-inch television. Right now we're starting with some of the picture modes that come with it, and right now we're starting with the standard. And you can see auto brightness control. What this does is it looks at the room level and automatically adjusts the TV's backlight accordingly. If you have that turned off, you're able to adjust the backlight manually, and it will keep that way. If you have the auto backlight setting turned on, you'll still be able to adjust the backlight some, just not as much. So right now we're going through what the backlight can do, and in a sense it does brighten it up. Now, I had noticed slight light leaks in the bottom right corner of my screen, the flash lighting effect, which shouldn't happen. It's like an edge lit display type of error on a television that's not supposed to have that. This is a Vizio, though. This isn't the highest quality television out there. I've talked to the company that I bought this from, and they said that I can do a return, but you never know if the television you're going to get after that is worse, and how many times you have to go through returning a television to get it, and other reviews that I've read. Most of them say they have perfect television, so I kind of want to do that, but some reviewers say that their televisions had way worse problems than what I had, so I should be pretty lucky. So I'm going to keep it for now. I have a 2-year protection plan, so if I need to return it within 2 years, I can do it if those things bother me. And maybe quality control will be a little bit better. Okay, so here's brightness, and as you can see, it does what it says it does. It makes it brighter, makes it darker. You can mess with turning the backlight down and the brightness all the way up. That way the brightness is only as bright as the backlight can be, and maybe that will help your light leak if that ever happens. Contrast, I thought, would make the blacks blacker and the brights brighter, but it seems to kind of do the same thing as the brightness. Notice as it starts going down again, I guess it gets a little muddier, but the whole thing gets dark, much darker. I thought it would just get flatter. I thought that contrast would make the brights closer to the blacks and the blacks closer to the brights, so it would just be a more even, muddy, flat, grayish tone, but that didn't seem to do it. Color, you can see in the +50 section it really bursts, and then it'll turn into complete black and white in the other way around. But in the brightness controls, I think I noticed that anything above 50, or at least in the backlight setting, anything above 50, it's really hard to tell that any changes that are happening. With these settings, from 0 to 50, it looks like there's some pretty obvious changes going on, and I'm going to keep these all at their middle sections when I'm done with them. This doing what you would imagine it to do. It's more purpley pink on the left side, and then more into the bluish green on the right side. Bring it back down to 0. Sharpness is something that's very obvious to me if you get close up to the television. From far away, it's kind of hard to notice, but it's nice to have down a tad. I like to bring it down just a tad because this television is so detailed that, especially when watching live television, when the streaming is a little bit pixelated, it's nice to bring that down to sort of blend those pixelated edges. So you can see me bringing it down a little bit less than 50. Now we're back to the backlight, so we're back to the top option for our basic settings. I don't know why I'm going all the way back down again, but there it is. I think I'll stop it right in the middle. Oh no, I'm going to go all the way up again. Okay. Boop. I thought this was a good image to stop on because it has so much contrast to it, so you can see what darks do and what the bright spots do. So now we'll go into advanced picture mode. I thought that there were more options for color temperature, but maybe it's because I'm in standard I don't get them. There's definitely more picture profiles. Here I am trying to adjust the pictures. It doesn't work on Blu-ray for some reason, but when you're in cable television, you can shrink the image that's behind the menu, so you can see the entire image next to this menu, not having the menu overlay it, but whatever. So there's just a few color temperatures. There's more picture modes that you have. Black detail, it's interesting. Watch this. In some cases, it actually looks like, see, now that it's off and now that it's on, it actually darkens the blacks. You would think that black detail, that it would bring up the blacks, but it seemed to darken the blacks. Active LED zones. So this is a big thing where what it does is the television has several zones, and depending on the size of your television, depends on, will let you know how many zones there are. I forgot how many LED lights there are, but out of all of those LED lights, they're broken up into zones. I guess you can equate it to having states bordered off in the United States. There are certain states that are all part of one giant United States. So there are certain states of LED lights. And when the active LED zones are on, it means that areas that are darker, those zones will dim. And the areas that are lighter, those LEDs will brighten. You'll see what why I don't like that later on. I thought it was a great selling point, and that's one of the reasons I bought the TV, but it does not act the way I would have liked to, so I've turned it off. Slow motion effect, you can't really see because I'm shooting in 24 frames per second, because most of the stuff I've been showing on television is 24 frames a second, so maybe I'll have to upload something that's at a different... I'll shoot it at 30 frames a second or 60, and we'll see how that looks. All right. Clear action, you can see that it says it reduces blur in the scenes, but it also darkens it. Reduces the side effects of digital compression, such as blocking and noise on sharp edges. You can definitely see this right to the right of the end of her flashlight. The rocks behind her get really blurry when it's on. And so see, this picture size is what I was trying to do, but it wasn't letting me do it. When film content is detected, picture is optimized. And we have the gamma set at 2.1. This brightens up everything, including the menu, so I'm not really sure how that differs from the brightness and contrast in terms of what it's doing to the image behind the menu, but certainly the gamma affects everything on the TV, not just the image. So now we'll look at the other picture modes, not the color modes, the picture modes, and these are the ones they come with. If you'll notice, some of them have an asterisk next to it. That means it has been adjusted from the way it was given to me when taken out of the box. That's my name, so I created this picture mode and named it myself so I wouldn't get confused with all the other ones. And this was the mode that worked best for me, that hid the little flashlighting effects on the bottom right, and I really haven't seen it. It's been great. So now we're messing with the active LED zones. This may be when I start playing the movie so you can watch it. I don't know. Okay, I guess not. So here's standard. So this has been messed with, but then I've put it back to about where it was when it was taken out of the box. Okay, so now we're playing the film. A lot of motion going on. So this probably means nothing. Yeah, I'm watching it back. It still looks like it doesn't look like it's done anything because my camera is shooting this screen at 24 frames a second, so it doesn't really translate well. Smooth motion seems pretty great. Every once in a while, if something's moving, there'll be a little bit of a jitter, but otherwise it's really smooth. I don't like it because it does make everything that I'm watching look like it was shot with a cheaper video camera. It's funny how the higher end video cameras and film cameras, they shoot at 24 frames a second, and higher end video cameras also shoot at 24 frames a second. But we have directors like Peter Jackson shooting at higher frame rates, so who knows what it will be, but I'm old school. I'm used to 24 frames per second looking like a film. So that's what I prefer. And if a film like this, which even though it was shot on a video camera, a red camera, it was still shot at 24 frames a second. And I want to see it at 24 frames a second. I don't want my TV creating frames for me because my TV is not a red camera. All right, so active LED zones. You can see how there's a bit of a gradient at the top of the screen from the black bars, a gradient from the LED zone. So that's the first reason I don't like it, because there's a gradient. I don't want that gradient there, even if it's subtle. And two, as it plays, you'll notice, and there you can see clear action, it darkens the image. I guess it helps the image with movement, but it still is darker. But back to the active LED zones, you'll notice when I play it, there's like a flickering. If the LED zones, watch the top of the screen. See now it just dimmed, now it just dimmed again. Dimmed again. It's like it's trying to keep up. An image goes from bright to dark. Let's say if it goes from bright to dark, it takes a second for those LED lights to dim down and match the next scene. And if it goes from dark to light, it takes that half second to go in that direction. So just keep looking at the top of the screen. Remember, my camera, its iris is stationary. I've locked the iris, I've locked the focus. Everything in my camera is locked. This is not my camera's auto adjustment of any kind. This is what the television is doing. This is what I see with my naked eye. This flickering, this dark, bright, dark, bright. Did you see it just dark right there, right as he started to drink? Oh, now it's flicking back and forth. It's ugly. I don't like it. The benefit of having them on is the contrast is a lot better when it's not flickering. Contrast looks great. When you turn it off, it's slightly more flat. The image, the black bars at the top and bottom are not as black, but there's no flickering. So I turn the active LED zones off. It makes the image a bit more flat, but I then bring down the backlight some to darken it up, and then I turn my gamma up to sort of bring it back up to a brightness that I like without having the backlights themselves go bright. Again, I don't really know what the television is doing in the difference of LED brightness settings and gamma settings. And this is great. Verizon files, I don't like that it goes to the very bottom, but the last two that you use are at the top there. So it was nice seeing that little, all that information. So we're at live television, where this soldier who came home and I'm sorry that it's on here. So these are what picture modes look like on live television. Now again, the slow motion, smooth motion effect really doesn't matter here because I am shooting at 24 frames a second. I wish I had thought about that while I was shooting, but so be it. I'll look to try to shoot something different at 30 or 60 frames later. But at least you're still able to see the sharpness of the text. While watching this, I realized that the camera that was shooting this press conference was not the cleanest camera. So that's the policemen on the far right and left are kind of blurry and smeared. That was this particular camera at this event. My live television doesn't normally look like that. It's just how this was being broadcast. So not a great example, but here we are looking through all the different picture modes as it plays through. The text is still quite sharp. Movements look pretty good. You can see the MSNBC logo glistening and doing all kinds of stuff. It looks nice and smooth. So now I'm going to go through and try to find just other things that are on television. I'm trying to find something that might be shot with a different type of camera in a different way with different lighting. Did I just pass the first 48? Oh well. We're going to go to some feature films. Here's classic 1998's Godzilla. You should definitely check out the How Did This Get Made episode on it. but I immediately saw that the quality of the broadcast was not terribly great. This is also not terribly great, but it's good enough. Oh, Comedy Bang Bang. Definitely watch Comedy Bang Bang. Speaking of Earwolf podcasts. But The Matrix, of course, shot on film, so that's what film at full screen can look like. This, I think, was shot either on an Alexa or Red. I don't think this was shot on film. I think this was HD. HD. Star Trek will go to an old school film. But this is an old school film that's being broadcast in its full 2:41 aspect ratio. So that's what that looks like. It was good to have that as an example. Back to After Earth, more recent film. Don't know if it was shot in this aspect ratio 16:9 or if it was shot more anamorphically, but this is how it's being broadcast and this is how it looks. After Earth, another film that you can listen to on How Did This Get Made. Hilarious, check it out. How did this get made on the Earwolf Podcast Network? So now we're going back to Blu-ray and we're going to look at another film. This will be Aliens, directed by James Cameron. I chose this out of the anthology because this is another full-frame image. So before we were looking at The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, which had black bars on the top and bottom and was shot on the red, so it was ultra smooth. Let's see what a film... But that was on Blu-ray, so let's see what film on a Blu-ray looks like. Let me rephrase that. We saw what the red camera, an HD video camera, looks like on Blu-ray with Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Now we're going to look at what film looks like put to Blu-ray. You can see the 1080p listed above. Some of them say 1080i, I believe, which I don't really understand. I guess some Blu-rays are just encoded in 1080i. I'm not sure. But here we go. Look at all the glorious grain. That's how detailed these images are. Another thing I should mention, I wanted to shoot this at 50 millimeters on my camera with a 50 millimeter lens because that is the closest to how the human eye sees, but I believe I shot this with a 17 millimeter lens because I just could not get the camera far back enough with its 50 millimeter lens to be able to see the entire screen. So there is a bit of, you can see the menu is kind of angled. It's a little bit higher in the center than it is on the left. It's kind of warping down ever so slightly because we're getting into the wide angle side of lenses. So I let the text play for a bit so you can get an idea of what text on the screen looks like, white on black. It's very clean. I realized I had this on the smooth motion effect, which you can't tell because I'm shooting at 24 frames a second, but I'm going to go ahead and go into my menu and change it to non-smooth motion. I could tell right away. I just knew there was something messed up with it, and I was looking for my remote. It was on high. There we go. So I'll let some scenes play. I'll jump to other chapters. I'm not going to let any one thing play a whole lot. Trying to find something that's a little bit brighter because this is so low so low key. But it's nice to see what semi-fast panning looks like and how details go with that. I tried to get my camera to be as close to the same brightness and contrast and color as I was seeing on the screen with my eye. So I'm hoping this is as accurate as possible. Locking down white balance and contrast and everything, and double checking before my edit, and that's why I put color bars at the beginning of this video in case you really want to get a reference and see how my video stacks up with all of the things you've been watching. Everything's so dark. This is a nice close-up shot of a hand and a cigarette. This is a good example of the detail. Again, this is a 1080 film blown up twice its size to 4K. So if you can imagine splitting up this rectangle into 4 equal smaller rectangles, 4 quadrants, you know, top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right. A 1080 image would fit in one of those quadrants in its natural aspect ratio. So it's pretty impressive that this is blown up twice as big and it still looks fantastic. Looking at some other features, this is Netflix. This is a smart television, so it does have a Netflix button listed right on the remote. So here we are in my Netflix account, and I'm going to go and try to find something, some different things. I had just watched this, didn't care for it too much. Loved his first film, Primers, didn't care for this as much. But I believe this was shot on video. There's kind of a grain to it, but it's also just very smooth, and the blacks are pushed up a lot, so it's got a very milky tone feel to it. It's very hazy and lots of lens flares, and it's ghosty. So I thought this would be a good first example of what Netflix looks like if you're going for a high-key image. I could tell that right there, that little black moment, that happens a lot when I load a Netflix film. After a few seconds of playing, it goes black for a second and then comes back. So at this point, I think the image has fully buffered. Netflix has fully buffered, and yeah, it's really sharp along the rims of his glasses, and I can see the texture of his skin. That's really nice. On the top left, if you hit info, you get the information about it. I don't know if that comes from Netflix or from my television. If you hit the down arrow on the remote, you get that information, so you can start fast forwarding. Hit down twice, and you get the audio and subtitles. And so this is what your options look like. These are Netflix options. These are not options that the television has. This is Netflix's audio streams and subtitle streams. I hit the back button, and I'll go back to my main menu. I'll find something that's completely different than that more video-y look. Let's go to an old school film. This was absolutely shot on film and shot anamorphically in 241. On the far left of the screen, sometimes on the right, look on the far left behind her on the window, I can see little black specks popping and all this stuff. I'm going to have to censor this out. Of course, this is a scene that comes on when I'm trying to show an example. So you can see what a film on Netflix shot on film looks like streaming. It buffers really quickly. It gets to full quality amazingly well. I'm really blown away at how clean this quality looks like. My television is streaming off of Netflix wirelessly. I am not hardwired into my router. We're on Verizon Fios. We had about, what was it? Usually we get 4 out of 5 bars, sometimes 3 out of 5 bars, and yet it still looks great. We have several computers in the house, but let's go for something even more different. Cloudy with a chance of meatballs, so we can see what CGI or just computer animation looks like. It is very blurry right now because it is buffering, but it buffers fairly quickly, and by the time the banana hits, it should be all buffered up. Like a banana bud. A little strawberry. Oh, how are you doing? So, I mean, you can't get any smoother than computer-animated images moving around. What I don't know if this was presented in 24 frames a second or not. I assume even a computer-animated film probably was. Very high key. But you can see how dark the black bars still look. Even as bright as these images are, very clean, sharp line between the black bar and the image. Not pixelated, just very clean and sharp. A lot of old big screen displays looked, I could see the pixels and I didn't like it. I could hear that it was in Spanish, so I had to change it. I don't know why it was in Spanish originally. Nothing wrong with the Spanish, I just don't remember. And these are what the subtitles look like. I assume these are just default Netflix subtitles. I don't know if you can change the font and the color. I usually like yellow subtitles, but what are you going to do? And there's a Walter White looking character. So, as this is a smart TV, if you hit the V button on your remote, you get all of those internet apps on the bottom of your screen. You do not have a web browser. I repeat, you do not have a web browser on this television. If you hit the V button a second time when you're on the HDTV settings, you are taken into this area. If you hit the OK button, you're just taken into the regular menu. So hit the V button a second time when you're on that HDTV settings, and you get to this area where you can control what apps are visible on that bottom ticker there on the main menu. You can add all of these. I'm just going through all of the different categories. There's also just a category that shows you everything. And anything you place into your list at the bottom of the screen when you're watching your regular programming, you can delete from the list. And you can reorder everything, which I will be getting to in a second. Notice that calculator. It is exactly the calculator from the iPhone. Now, of course, a lot of these will require some sort of internet connection, be it wireless or through Ethernet. So here I am going through some of them. So I'm choosing Bravo. On the bottom right, it says hold add to your list. And now Bravo TV has been added to your My Apps list. So we'll exit out of it, go back to our regular television, go and then open up, hit the V button. And sure enough, there it is. That's where it's sitting, right between the HDTV settings and the Yahoo App Store. Now we can move that around and rearrange where it is in our list. So going back into our settings after hitting the V button again, we'll scroll to it, hold to edit bookmark. I did not hold, I just pressed it once, so whoops. And now I hit the OK button rather than the V button a second time, so that shows you how that messes that up. There we go, holding the V button, scrolling down to Bravo, holding it. Now when using our arrow keys around the OK button on the remote, we can choose up, down, left, right, and we want to put it there between YouTube and Hulu Plus. Let's exit out of it, and it should be between YouTube and Hulu Plus. There it is, Bravo. Right where we said it would be. Going to our HDTV settings, we can now go back into it, press and hold to edit it, and then press OK to delete it. Do you want to delete it? Oh yes, I'm sure. And it's gone. So I had Netflix because I used that the most, then YouTube, then Hulu Plus. It was in the order of how often I use things. And see, there it is. It was deleted out of my list, but it's still there to bring back. You have not permanently deleted anything. Now we'll go into, I believe, how the audio works. Though here it is showing how you can resize the screen, so you see the entire image that's being broadcast rather than overlay. That's center overlay. Or you can have just it positioned normally in the background. So now we'll get to audio, and I will shut up so you can hear what it sounds like, even though it's not the best example since it's a camera microphone. Oh, first I'm putting it on the smooth. Oh, yes, I am shooting this at 60 frames a second now, so it should be smooth as smooth can be.
Introducing CVS Health. To help all those wishes come true. CVS Health. Because health is everything.
Get ready for some German-engineered holiday excitement at Volkswagen Sign and Drive event. Right now, for practically just your... You can drive home for the holidays in a new Volkswagen, like the sporty, advanced Jetta, and the precisely engineered Passat TDI. Ah, the gift of clean diesel. For the new Volkswagen on your list this year, just about all you need is a pen. Festive, isn't it?
It's zero due at signing, zero deposit, and zero first month's payment on select new Volkswagen models.
Are we looking at yet another Bush versus yet another Clinton in 2016? Don't give up hope yet. To answer the question, MSNBC contributor Sam Cedar and Alex Sink, former Democratic candidate for governor of Florida. Good evening to you both. Sam, is Jeb Bush a real future president right here?
I would say absolutely not. I mean, here's a guy who's been out of politics for 12 years. He may have had his day at one point. But I just don't think he can make it through the Republican primary, and even then I'm not quite sure he'd be president.
Alex, you know a lot about this, and you narrowly lost the governorship of Florida by about a 10. Jeb has had success in that state. Help us understand him since you've been there.
Well, I agree with Sam that run for office in 12 years, and I think Jeb is going to be a little rusty around the edges. His big problem is going to be things, immigration reform and something called Common Core, which he is the father and the designer of Common Core, which is very unpopular. And I have to say that if it comes down to Hillary versus Jeb, Hillary will carry Florida.
And do you think his views on immigration, which are welcomed by a lot of people in the country who may not always be Republican primary voters, do you think they will change based on your estimation of him?
Not at all. Jeb has a history of being very firm in his convictions, and I think he's out there as having said that the Republican Party is going to have to come to him versus him making the moves to go to the Republican Party. So these early primary states and the competition in the Republican primary are going to be very revealing about Jeb. He historically has been very firm in the things and his principles and what he believes in.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't followed Jeb enough to know whether that's the case. If that is the case, then he doesn't win. I mean, that's the bottom line, is that I think what the real story ultimately, I think, for this Republican primary, when it starts to heat up, is will those who we perceived as completely marginal...
Okay, so that was the audio portion of it. Looking at the timers, looking at when it can auto power off. That's very cool because these LED lights have a limited lifespan, I believe. Screensaver, I've never actually seen what the screensaver looks like, but there it is. Blank screen, hit it, turns off. Just hit OK or hit any button on the remote, it'll come back on. And if you noticed on the bottom left corner, the power light went on to let you know that, hey, the TV is actually powered on. We just don't have any image. So here's the remote. Here's the beautiful remote, which you saw a bit of earlier. It has buttons for Amazon, Netflix, and iHeartRadio at the top for instant buttons, but then of course you have all the other buttons if you want at the bottom. There's the V button right between the volume and the channel button. The mute button, the picture button. I haven't found how recording and stops works, but the rewind, play, pause, and fast forward work for Netflix. I'm showing you the sides of this remote because as you can see there, you don't see the little lasers that are on the remote that you use to, you know, when you point the remote at the television to do something where the little infrareds. They are there. We'll get to them. So here's the great thing about it. So the reverse size has a keyboard. It's the only side that actually illuminates in the night, however. But you can type. It's great. So when you're searching for something, you just type it in. You don't have to navigate through a block. But this side does not have glowing. So here's the batteries. Let's take off the back. Once it's taken off, there's a little cat hair on the side there. I'll remove that from the battery. Whoop. It's still there on my thumb. Get it off. There we go. And I think there's still another one that I didn't catch. But it takes those two AAA batteries, and there are the little IR things. You have the one on the long side, so when you're typing in that horizontal mode, it'll be facing the television. And it works behind that plastic, I guess. Some of the other buttons, it's very nice tactile buttons. It's a very nice feeling remote. It's just a very glossy front, and you can see all the hairs that are all over it. My goodness, I don't notice that until it's a super close-up image. I tried wiping it clean, but I clearly need to wipe it more clean. But hey, it means I've been using the remote a lot. I've been playing around with the television. So I guess that covers everything. The only thing I have not covered yet is the USB stick that goes in the side of the television. I'm still looking into what formats it supports. I've been able to play MKV files, and I believe it's an MP4, or maybe it was an M4V. I forgot how it was encoded. It was encoded for the iPhone, which is what I would watch movies on the go. So I'm not sure exactly what it was encoded for, but that played as well. So I thank you. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and I'll try to answer them. I might also add footnotes to the bottom in the video's description so I don't have to make yet another video. I appreciate all the time you spent watching this video. I hope it helped. Thank you very much.